Hello, boys and girls. This is 6th grade Engage New York, Module 3, Lesson 1. So today we're going to be talking about positive and negative numbers on the number line. So the first thing that we need to do is think about what are the rules of a number line. What are some very basic criteria that all number lines have to meet? So there are about 4 rules that we've gone over already this year, but the 2 that we really need to focus on today is that on a number line, equal space represents equal value. Equal space for equal value. So whatever amount of the line represents one whole, it has to represent that amount of space on the number line has to always represent one whole, or 5 wholes, or whatever it is that you are counting by. The other thing that we need to focus on are that number lines are ordered from least to greatest. And if it's a horizontal number line, then it goes least to greatest, left to right. And if it's a vertical number line, then you're going least up to greatest. So knowing that all numbers have to be put on there in that order. Scale. So when you talk about scale of a number line, you're talking about what are you counting by? What is the value for each space? So if I'm using numbers that are close together, my scale might be 1. Each tick mark on the number line is going to be increasing by 1. If I'm talking about the number of attendance at a Kansas City Chief game, then I might be talking about numbers in the 10,000s. So my scale might be every tick mark is 10,000. So I would count 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and so on. Next is hyphen, and that's a symbol that we often see in math. Looks like this. I'm going to put it in parentheses. The hyphen, it can mean a couple of different things. We learned in younger grades that it means to subtract. So if you say 3 minus 2, there is a hyphen and it means to subtract. We've also seen it with negative numbers. So the temperatures lately have been very low, so maybe at night it got down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. So here's a hyphen showing that it's below 0, -4 degrees. And then a new meaning for the hyphen that we're going to talk about today is that it means opposite. That it means opposite. So when we talk about opposites on the number line, opposites are the same distance from 0, but on opposite sides or on the other side of the number line. And we'll give an example of that in just a second. Lastly, we have integer. That's commonly mispronounced, so it's integer. And these are all whole numbers and their opposites. Okay, so if you're looking at the exercises for lesson 1, the first thing that you see, we have a horizontal number line. So I want you to find the tick mark in the center and number it 0. So find the tick mark in the middle and number it 0. Okay. So in this case, we're going to give an integer. So it's going to be a whole number and their opposite. So let's say your integer is 4. So 4 is a small number. I can use a scale of 1. So each tick mark is going to be worth 1. Okay. So when I'm plotting a point on a number line, you're going to go where the tick mark meets the number line, and you're going to do a solid black dot. You don't want to leave it open. That has a different meaning. So when you plot a point, it's a solid dot. And I'm going to name this point G. So my integer is G. And it is, the distance from 0 is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So 4 is 4 units to the right of 0. 4 is an integer. Now I'm going to find the opposite. So the opposite 4 is the same distance from 0, but on the other side of the number line. So if 4 is 4 units to the right of 0, the opposite of 4 is 4 units to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the opposite of 4 is -4. But remember, this hyphen can also mean the opposite. So you can read this as -4 or the opposite of 4. And then I would name this point the opposite of G. Okay, so when you're finding opposites, that's how you can do that. Let's go ahead and look on here. If I were looking at the value of G and -G, and I needed to determine which is greater. So think about the value of G. Think about what we know, the value of number lines. It's a horizontal number line, and our values go from least to greatest. So this point is on the left, and I know least to greatest. So the point on the left has the least value, and the point on the right has the greatest value. So 4 is greater than -4, or the opposite of 4. Now we can do that similar on the vertical number line. So go ahead and find the center point and label it 0. And this time, my integer is going to be -15. -15. Well, knowing that the amount of tick marks I have here, I don't have enough that I can count to 15 by 1. So I'm going to have to choose a different scale. I could use a lot of different scales. It wouldn't make sense to count by 2s because 15 is not even. So I could count by 3s, I could count by 5s. Those two scales would work. And I'm going to count by 5s. So my scale is going to be 5. And we talked about the value on this number line goes from least to greatest. So from 0, I'm going to count out 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And this will be -5. Because those are opposites, they have to be the same distance. So then -10, -15, -20, and -25. Okay, so if I plot a point at -15, right here where the tick mark meets the number line, a solid circle, and this will be G in this case. So G is 1, 2, 3. Is 3 units below 0. So the opposite of -15 would not be 3 units below 0, but the opposite of 15 should be 3 units above 0. So if we go 3 units above 0, 1, 2, 3, that puts us at 15. Or the opposite of G. So these are opposites because they're the same distance from 0, but on opposite sides of it. And now G is the integer that I started with, so I marked it. So now the opposite of G is a positive number. And that's okay because that doesn't mean negative, it means the opposite. The opposite of G would be a positive 15. So now looking at this, which has greater value? So we know that on a vertical number line, value goes least to greatest. So -15 has less value than 15. So -G, or the opposite of G, has greater value than G. There is a number that we need to pay attention to when we're talking about opposites, and that is 0. 0 does not have an opposite. 0 is neither positive nor negative, So there can never be a negative 0 or the opposite of 0. It is neutral, and so it does not have an opposite. That's something that you need to keep in mind. Use a ruler or a straight edge while you're doing the problem set. On 5, 6, and 7, it asks to explain your reasoning when you're describing opposites, so make sure that you do that clearly. Okay, work hard.